Hi, I'm Donna Kallner. This video is part of Lesson 2 in the New Age Looping Basics e-course. In this video, we're going to step away from the mold for a little while, and you're going to learn how to work a round base. We'll go back to the mold in the next video, but these round bases can be used any number of ways in looping. There are several ways to begin a round base for a looping project. This base uses the slipknot ring start. It begins with a slipknot made in the tail of the working thread. The slipknot is used as a base cord equivalent. You work the base row into the slipknot and then pull out all the slack, and that leaves a compact cluster of stitches at the center of your round base. You increase by adding stitches as you work into those stitches on the base row. If you knit or crochet, you may be used to using a slipknot, but you've probably made it in the working end of the thread rather than in the tail. If you do that here, you won't be able to pull out the slack. So for starting a round base where you want to be able to draw out all of that excess and have a nice tight center, you want to be sure to pull up the tail of the thread when you make the slipknot. Make a loop of thread with the working thread passing over the tail end. Reach through the loop and pull up a loop from the tail. You can tell if it's made properly by tugging on the tail. If the loop gets smaller when you tug on the tail, that's correct. If the loop doesn't change or it gets smaller when you tug on the working thread, try that slipknot again. Once you have the slipknot, orient the loop it forms to act as a base cord. Think of that loop as one big lag for now if you like. Insert the needle from north to south under the lag and over the working thread, and draw that into a stitch. Advance and make another stitch, and repeat that until you have 4 or 5 stitches on the base row. Please note that this demonstration is worked right-handed. You lefties would be holding this differently and advancing the opposite direction. When you have 4 or 5 stitches in the base row, pull the tail of the slipknot to take all of the slack out of that slipknot loop and draw the stitches together. Hold on to it as you're pulling that slipknot tight. Tidy things up so that you can discern the difference between the stitches and the lags on this base row, and you'll be ready to start stitching into this round base. Position the tail along the lags of the base row so that you can trap that tail with your stitches. Right from the get-go, you're going to need to think about increasing or adding stitches before you advance, making an extra stitch into each lag probably on this first row of stitching after the base row, so that the work builds as a flat base. Keep rotating the base as you work to maintain your normal stitching orientation, that north to south movement of the needle as it passes under the base cord, traps the tail, and moves over the working thread. Increase as necessary to continue building a flat disc. After you've worked all the way around the base row with this next row of stitching, that tail should be securely trapped and you can just trim off the excess. And now you just keep advancing as normal, stitching into the lags, increasing as needed to build a flat disc or base. A couple of things you may want to note. Try different hand positions as you're stitching into this flat disc to see what feels most comfortable for you. You want to be able to maintain the last stitch made with your non-dominant hand while your dominant hand handles the movement of the needle. You will probably find that you hold your work a little bit differently depending on how much work is in your hand, the type of thread that you're using, and other factors as well. Sometimes I even hold things differently depending upon the light conditions, but that's a conversation for later in the course. For now, I'll just say try making one or two small round base samples just to establish this technique in your bag of tricks. And when you've done that, I'll meet you in the next video where we'll integrate this round base into a project that goes back on the mold. I'll see you there.